The elders called him Tso-ay, the cursed giant whose shadow brought misfortune to the people. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, he lived alone in the crimson canyons where no one dared to tread. His own tribe had cast him out, believing his presence angered the spirits. Children were hushed at the mention of his name, and women took the long path around his territory, clutching protective amulets. For 20 summers, he carved beautiful figures from cedar wood that no one would ever see. His isolation was complete until the day Nakia, a healer with eyes that held no fear, crossed the boundary others wouldn't. She came for a wounded horse but found something unexpected, a gentle soul behind the fearsome legend. Could the curse that had defined him for so long be nothing more than a cruel misunderstanding? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn painted the adobe dwellings in shades of amber as Nakia gathered herbs from her garden. Her fingers worked methodically, selecting sage, juniper, and yarrow with practiced precision. Each plant whispered its secrets to her, knowledge passed from her grandmother and the grandmothers before her. She tucked them into her medicine pouch, a worn leather sack adorned with beadwork depicting healing symbols. "The fever has broken," she told the worried mother waiting at her door. "Keep making the tea as I showed you, and your son will be playing with the others by tomorrow's sunset." The woman's shoulders relaxed, gratitude shining in her tired eyes. This was Nakia's gift and her burden. At 25 summers, she carried the responsibility of healing for her entire village. Not the oldest medicine woman, nor the most experienced, but the one with the touch that animals trusted and children didn't fear. "Nakia!" A young boy ran toward her, dust rising from his bare feet. "The chief wants you. His favorite horse is injured." She followed him to the edge of the village where a magnificent stallion lay breathing heavily, a deep gash across its flank. The chief stood nearby, his weathered face creased with concern. "It wandered back from the western canyon," he explained. "Something attacked it near the forbidden territory." The forbidden territory. Nakia kept her expression neutral, though her heart quickened. Everyone knew what lived in those crimson canyons. "I will need to gather more medicine," she said, "and I may need to stay with the horse overnight." The chief nodded gravely. "Do what you must, but be cautious. The drought makes the spirits restless, and the cursed one grows bolder." That evening, as she prepared her healing supplies, her grandmother entered her dwelling. White hair, they called her, the oldest living memory of their people. "You go to the canyon tomorrow," she stated, her voice carrying the weight of certainty. Nakia didn't question how she knew. "The horse needs herbs that grow there." "And you are not afraid of the stories?" White hair settled beside the fire, her eyes reflecting the flames. "Stories are often just that, stories." Nakia arranged poultices in her medicine pouch. "Not all." The old woman's fingers traced the beadwork on Nakia's pouch. "I made this for you because I saw that you would need its protection one day." "From the cursed giant?" Nakia couldn't help the skepticism in her voice. "From fear itself." White hair took a pinch of sacred herbs and cast them into the fire. "The drought has lasted 3 seasons now. The people seek someone to blame. And they blame him, the one they cast out." Nakia had always wondered about the giant who lived alone in the canyons. As a child, she'd heard whispers of his immense strength, his unnatural height, the calamities that followed in his wake. When fear rules the heart, truth hides its face. White hair stood with effort. "Take this with you tomorrow." She pressed a small stone amulet into Nakia's palm. "It belonged to your mother." "My mother." Nakia rarely heard mention of the woman who died bringing her into the world. She too had eyes that saw beyond appearances. The old woman shuffled toward the door. "Remember, Nikia, cursed or blessed depends on who tells the story." After her grandmother left, Nakia added the amulet to her medicine pouch. Tomorrow she would enter the territory everyone avoided. She told herself it was for the wounded horse, for her duty as a healer. But deep within, curiosity stirred. About the giant, about the curse, about why her heart felt no fear when others trembled at the mere mention of his name. As she drifted to sleep, the drought-parched wind whispered through the village. No rain had fallen in 90 days. The crops withered in the fields, and the streams ran thin. People were frightened, and frightened people needed something or someone to blame. Tomorrow she would cross the boundary that no one crossed. Tomorrow she might discover if the curse was real. The canyon walls glowed crimson in the morning light as Tso-ay emerged from his dwelling. A shallow cave expanded over years into a home of sorts. His massive frame ducked beneath the entrance, shoulders nearly spanning its width. At almost 7 feet tall, he had always been too large for the world around him. He moved with the quiet grace of a man accustomed to solitude, gathering water from the hidden spring that had sustained him through 20 years of exile. The drought had lowered its level, but unlike the village streams, it never ran dry. The spirits still spoke to him, even if his people believed otherwise. Beside his fire pit sat his latest creation. A cedar wolf, its form emerging from the wood as if it had always been there waiting. His large hands, surprisingly nimble, picked up the carving knife. Each stroke was deliberate, revealing the spirit within the wood rather than imposing his will upon it. This was his morning ritual, this communion with cedar and blade. He had dozens of carvings. Eagles soaring, horses running, bears standing guard. An audience of silent companions that watched over his loneliness. Sometimes he spoke to them, his deep voice rough from disuse. They were his only listeners now. A sound caught his attention, the labored breathing of an animal in distress. He set down his carving and moved toward the canyon entrance, senses alert. There, collapsed in the shadow of a juniper, lay a horse, a magnificent stallion with the markings of the village chief's prized mount. Tso-ay approached cautiously. The horse's eyes rolled with fear, nostrils flaring at his scent. A deep gash ran across its flank, still seeping blood. Mountain lion, most likely. Easy, he murmured, his voice a low rumble that somehow calmed the frightened animal. I will not harm you. He retreated to his dwelling and returned with a poultice of herbs he had gathered and dried. The horse watched him, warily but did not struggle as his large hands gently cleaned the wound and applied the medicine. You have wandered far from home, he told the horse. They will look for you. The thought troubled him. No one had entered his territory in years, by choice and by the boundaries his tribe had established when they cast him out. The curse, they called it, a convenient explanation for a truth too complicated to face. As he tended the horse, memories surfaced of another time, when he had lived among his people. Before the accusations, before the fear, before a drought much like this one had turned whispers into shouts of blame. He had been 17 when they drove him out, a boy in a man's massive body, already feared for his size, already marked as different. The elders had proclaimed his growth unnatural, evidence of spiritual interference. Then the drought came and crops failed, and children sickened. They needed someone to blame. Tso-ay straightened, his back aching from bending over the horse. At 37, he felt older than his years. Isolation aged a man faster than time itself. He returned to his carving, but his concentration had scattered like dust in the wind. Someone would come for the horse. Someone would enter his territory. The thought both troubled and intrigued him. How long had it been since he had spoken to another person? Since he had heard any voice but his own? He placed his cedar wolf among the others, his silent tribe that accepted him without question. His fingers lingered on a small figure half hidden among the collection, a woman holding a medicine pouch, her face serene. He had carved her from memory, a girl from his youth who had once shown him kindness when others showed fear. The horse nickered softly, drawing his attention. Tso-ay sensed a change in the air, a disturbance in the usual rhythm of the canyon. Someone was coming. He could feel it as surely as he could feel the wood grain beneath his fingertips. After 20 years of solitude, Tso-ay was about to have a visitor. Morning heat shimmered above the dusty path as Nakia followed the horse's tracks. Her medicine pouch hung heavy at her side, filled with remedies for wounds both seen and unseen. The village had fallen behind, its adobe structures shrinking with distance until they disappeared altogether. The forbidden territory loomed ahead, a labyrinth of crimson canyons carved by ancient waters long since vanished. The boundary was unmarked yet unmistakable. A subtle shift in the land, a heaviness in the air that spoke of otherness. Nikia paused, her grandmother's words echoing in her mind. Cursed or blessed depends on who tells the story. Drawing a deep breath, she stepped across the invisible line. The canyon walls rose around her, their red surfaces etched with shadows. Silence pressed against her ears. Not the absence of sound, but a different quality to it, as if the world held its breath. She followed the horse's trail deeper into the maze, noting how the tracks became more erratic, evidence of the animal's distress. Then suddenly the tracks changed, no longer stumbling but walking steadily, and alongside them another set of prints. Human footprints, but massive in size. Nakia's heart quickened. The stories were true, at least in part. Someone very large walked these canyons. A soft nickering drew her attention. Rounding a bend, she stopped abruptly. There stood the chief stallion, its wound cleaned and dressed with a poultice of unfamiliar herbs. The horse appeared calm, even as it acknowledged her presence with a gentle snort. Movement caught her eye, a shadow withdrawing deeper into the canyon. Massive, human. Wait, she called, surprising herself with her boldness. I mean no harm. I've come for the horse. Silence answered her. Then, reluctantly, the shadow shifted. A man stepped into view, and Nikia fought to control her expression. He was enormous. The tales hadn't exaggerated his size. Nearly 7 feet of solid strength, with shoulders broad enough to carry a man on each. His face, partly hidden by long black hair, bore the unmistakable features of their tribe, yet seemed carved from the canyon itself, all angles and weathered plains. His eyes were not what she expected. Dark and deep, they held no malice, only wariness. And something else. Loneliness. You've tended his wound, she said, gesturing to the horse. I'm a healer. I came to do the same. The giant, Tso-ay, if the stories named him correctly, regarded her silently. When he finally spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder, rough from disuse. It was not safe to travel with such a wound. Mountain lion territory. 5 words. 5 words that shattered the image of a mindless, cursed creature. 5 words that held concern for an animal's welfare. Nikia approached the horse slowly, aware of Tso-ay watching her every move. She examined the wound and the poultice. This is good medicine, she acknowledged. What herbs did you use? He hesitated, as if unused to conversation. Canyon sage, cedar bark, spider web for binding. She nodded, adding her own medicine to complement his work. They fell into an awkward rhythm, moving around the horse, careful not to touch, yet sharing the space. Nikia felt his eyes on her, not threatening but curious. She wondered how long it had been since he'd spoken to another person. As she worked, she noticed small wooden figures scattered near a fire pit, carvings of exquisite detail, animals mostly captured in motion and spirit. You made these? She asked, gesturing toward them. He nodded once, eyes wary, as if expecting mockery. They're beautiful, she said simply. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in a stone facade. Before he could respond, voices echoed from the canyon entrance, searching parties from the village. Tso-ay melted back into the shadows, a fleeting look of, was it resignation? Regret? Crossing his face. Wait, Nakia whispered, but he was already gone, vanishing with surprising grace for one so large. The search party rounded the bend, spears ready. Nakia, are you harmed? The chief's son, Keem, rushed forward. I'm fine, she said, hand still extended toward where Tso-ay had disappeared. The horse is healing well. We must leave this place, Keem insisted, eyes darting nervously. The cursed one dwells here. Nakia looked toward the shadows where gentle eyes had watched her. Yes, she said quietly. Let's go home. That night, sleep eluded Nakia. The image of Tso-ay's retreat into the shadows haunted her, the resignation in his posture, as if rejection were his only expectation from the world. She had returned to the village a hero for rescuing the chief's prize stallion, saying nothing of the giant who had actually saved it first. 3 days passed. The horse recovered swiftly, the strange poultice working better than any remedy Nikia knew. Her thoughts continually drifted to the forbidden canyon, to cedar carvings and gentle hands too large for delicate work yet somehow perfect for it. On the 4th morning, she approached her grandmother. I need to gather canyon sage, she said, arranging her medicine pouch with deliberate casualness. Our supplies are low. Whitehair's knowing eyes studied her. Canyon sage grows in only one place nearby. Yes, Nakia met her gaze steadily. In the western canyons, where the cursed one dwells. The old woman's voice held no judgment, merely observation. I encountered him, Nakia admitted. He helped the horse before I arrived. Her grandmother nodded slowly. And now you return. For medicine, Nakia insisted, though the explanation felt incomplete even to her own ears. Be careful, child, Whitehair said. Not of him, perhaps, but there are many in our village who would see his existence as a threat, especially now with the drought worsening. The warning followed Nakia as she made her way back to the forbidden territory, a small bundle of dried corn cakes tucked alongside her gathering baskets. A gift, though she wouldn't acknowledge it as such even to herself. The canyon seemed to recognize her this time, the silence less oppressive, more expectant. She retraced her path from days before, uncertainty growing with each step. Would he still be there? Would he show himself again? At the clearing where they had tended the horse, she paused. The fire pit was cold, the area seemingly abandoned. I brought food, she called softly to the empty air. And I need more canyon sage for my medicines. Movement from above. A shadow shifting on a ledge she hadn't noticed before. Then the soft crunch of footsteps as Tso-ay descended with surprising agility for one his size. He kept his distance, regarding her with that same wary curiosity. You returned. His voice was slightly less rough, as if he'd been practicing speech in her absence. I'm a healer. We need the plants that grow here. She held out the corn cakes, a peace offering. He approached cautiously, accepting them with a nod of thanks. His fingers, she noticed, were stained with cedar oil and pigments. You're working on a new carving? She asked. Surprise flickered across his face. Surprise that she remembered, that she cared to ask. Yes. After a moment's hesitation, he added, Would you like to see? She nodded, and he led her to his dwelling, the cave she had glimpsed days before. Outside sat a flat stone used as a work table, covered with carving tools and wood shavings. Arranged in careful rows were his creations, dozens of animals, each captured in remarkable detail. You have a gift, she said, genuinely impressed. They keep me company. The simple statement revealed volumes about his isolation. Nakia's gaze settled on a half-finished piece. A bear standing upright, paws extended. A medicine bear, she observed. In our traditions, they carry healing power. In mine as well. Tso-ay hesitated, then asked, Your name? I don't know it. Nakia. She smiled. And you are Tso-ay? He nodded, something shifting in his expression at the sound of his name spoken without fear or contempt. They spent the afternoon in strange companionship. He showed her where the best canyon sage grew, along with other plants she hadn't known existed in these parts. She shared her knowledge of their medicinal uses. Few words passed between them, yet the silence felt increasingly comfortable. As the sun lowered, Nakia reluctantly gathered her now full baskets. "I must return before dark." Tso-ay nodded, escorting her to the canyon entrance. As they parted, he pressed something into her palm. The carved medicine bear, completed somehow while she wasn't watching. "For healing," he said simply. Nakia clutched it, feeling the warmth of the wood, the care in each carved line. "I'll return," she promised, surprising herself with how much she meant it. In the village that evening, drought dominated all conversation. No rain for over 100 days, crops failing, water sources dwindling, and whispers growing louder. Perhaps the curse was strengthening. White hair waited in Nikia's dwelling, ancient hands arranging a circle of painted stones on the earthen floor. Each bore symbols Nikia recognized from childhood lessons, tribal histories, warnings, prophecies. "Sit, granddaughter." The old woman patted the ground beside her. "Your thoughts are as transparent as spring water." Nakia settled cross-legged, the carved medicine bear hidden in her pouch. "The drought worsens. People grow frightened. People are always frightened of what they don't understand." White hair touched a stone bearing a spiral pattern. "This tells of the Great Division, when our tribe split like a lightning-struck tree." "The division? I've never heard this story." "Because the victors prefer it forgotten." The old woman's eyes reflected firelight. "2 generations before your birth, our people were one tribe with those who now live beyond the eastern mountains. A dispute arose between brothers, both with claim to leadership. White hair arranged the stones in a new pattern. The stronger brother prevailed through fear rather than wisdom. Those loyal to the other brother were cast out or fled. Some remained, keeping silent to survive." "What does this have to do with?" Nakia stopped herself. "With the giant who lives alone in the canyon?" White hair's smile held no humor. "Perhaps nothing. Perhaps everything. The patterns of our past repeat themselves like footprints in soft clay." She gathered the stones into a leather pouch. "Be careful where you walk, granddaughter. Some paths, once taken, cannot be retraced." The warning echoed in Nakia's mind as she slipped away from the village the following day. These visits had become a dangerous habit. 5 times now she had returned to the Forbidden Canyon. Each time, Tso-ay seemed to expect her, as if he sensed her approach. Each time, words flowed more easily between them. Today, she found him beside the hidden spring, filling water gourds. "The village stream runs lower each day," she said in greeting. "People say it's because the spirits are angry." "Not angry, changing." He passed her a gourd of cool water. "The earth shifts. Waters find new paths beneath the ground." She drank gratefully. "You understand these things?" "I watch. I listen." His gaze traveled to the canyon walls. "When you live alone, you hear what others miss." They walked together, climbing higher than they had before. Tso-ay moved with surprising grace, occasionally extending a hand to help her over difficult passages. His touch was cautious, as if afraid his strength might harm her. Near the canyon rim, he showed her a circle of stones similar to her grandmother's, but larger, more ancient. "My father's teachings," he explained. "Before the tribe feared me." "Why did they begin to fear you?" Nakia asked the question that had lingered since our first meeting. Tso-ay's expression closed like a night flower. "I grew too large too quickly. When the drought came 20 summers ago, the shamans said my presence angered the spirits." "You were cast out because of your size?" "Size made me different. Different became dangerous." His voice held old pain. Then the chief's son sickened and died. They said my shadow had fallen across his path. You were blamed for his death. Nakia's heart ached at the injustice. I was 17 summers old, so I turned away. Old enough to be banished, young enough to believe I might truly be cursed. Impulsively, she touched his arm. You're not cursed. He looked down at her hand on his sleeve, wonder crossing his features. How long had it been since anyone had willingly touched him? A shout from below shattered the moment. Hunters from the village, tracking deer into the canyon's edge. They froze, Tso-ay instinctively pulling her into the shadow of a boulder. His body sheltered hers, his heartbeat strong against her shoulder. The hunters passed below, unaware of watchers above. When they had gone, neither moved immediately. The awareness of their closeness hung in the air between them. I should go, Nikia whispered. If I'm discovered here. He nodded, stepping back. Tomorrow? The question held vulnerability that tightened her throat. Tomorrow, she promised. As she descended toward the village, a small child ran past, crying about a missing doll swept away in the weakened stream. Adults shouted blame and accusations. Someone had angered the spirits. Someone had brought bad luck. Keem, the chief's son, pointed at the child. She played near the western canyon yesterday. She has brought the curse upon her doll, upon our water. No, Nakia interrupted, drawing startled looks. She's just a child. The drought is not her doing. Keem's eyes narrowed. You defend her strangely, Nakia. Where do you go each day with your empty baskets, returning with so few plants? She felt the weight of stares of suspicion. I go where the medicine grows, she answered evenly. I am a healer. That is my duty. But as she walked away, she felt the fragile threads of her two worlds beginning to tangle dangerously. The village well yielded barely enough water to fill a small pot. Women argued over their place in line, tension crackling like dry brush ready to ignite. Nikia watched from the healing lodge, where she treated an elder's swollen joints. The drought had reached crisis, 120 days without rain. Water is life, the elder murmured, following her gaze. Without it, people become something less than human. That afternoon, she slipped away to the canyon, anxiety propelling her steps faster than usual. Tso-ay waited at their usual meeting place, a flat rock overlooking a small grotto where canyon doves nested. In his hands he held a peculiar forked stick, freshly cut from a willow. What troubles you? He asked immediately, his ability to read her emotions both surprising and comforting. The village well runs dry, she replied. Children go thirsty. The crops wither in the fields. Tso-ay studied the stick in his hands, then held it out to her. My father taught me to find water beneath the ground. Perhaps I can teach you. The stick was shaped like a wishbone, smooth where his large hands had gripped it. He showed her how to hold it. Palms up, thumbs outward, the fork pointing forward. Water sings beneath the earth, he explained. The stick hears its song. They walked together along the canyon floor, the stick floating weightlessly in her grasp. Then suddenly, without warning, it dipped sharply downward, nearly pulling from her hands. There, Tso-ay said, satisfaction warming his deep voice. Water flows below. He led her to several more spots, teaching her the signs, certain plants that indicated water, subtle changes in soil color, the way morning dew collected. With each lesson, Nakia's respect deepened. This man the village feared as cursed held knowledge that could save them all. Why do you share this with me? She asked as they rested beside the hidden spring. Tso-ay was silent for a long moment. Your eyes, he finally said. When you look at me, you see a person, not a curse. The simple truth of his words touched something deep within her. Is that so rare? In 20 years, you are the first. His gaze held hers, intensity burning behind his usual reserve. Something shifted between them in that moment. a recognition neither was prepared to name. Nakia looked away first, heart beating oddly in her chest. "Your people suffer," he said quietly. "I can show them where water hides beneath the earth." Hope flared briefly before reality extinguished it. They would never accept help from the cursed one. He nodded, no bitterness in his tone, only resignation. "But you could show them. The waterfinding stick responds to your hands now. They would ask how I learned, where I learned. Then tell them truth's shadow, not its heart." He picked up a stone, turning it in his fingers. "Say the knowledge came from your grandmother, or from spirits in dreams." Nakia considered his words. Deception felt wrong, yet so did allowing children to go thirsty when water might be found. "Come," he said, standing. "Before you decide, let me show you something else." He led her deeper into the canyon than she had ever ventured, to a place where the walls narrowed almost to touching. Slipping sideways through the gap, they emerged into a hidden grotto. Nakia gasped. A pool of clear water shimmered in the center, fed by a small spring trickling from the rock face. Around it grew plants she had never seen, lush and green despite the drought. "This place is sacred," Tso-ay said quietly. "Few know of its existence." "It's beautiful," she whispered, understanding the trust he placed in her by revealing it. "The water here has special properties. It heals in ways ordinary water cannot." Nakia knelt beside the pool, feeling its energy. "This could help my grandmother. She weakens with each passing day." "Take what you need," he offered. "The spring gives freely." As she filled her water gourd, Tso-ay knelt across from her. Their reflections wavered together on the surface, the small healer and the giant outcast, their images merging in the ripples. "Nakia." Her name on his lips sent an unexpected warmth through her. "In another life, perhaps we would have." Distant voices echoed through the canyon. Village hunters again, their presence a sharp reminder of the world beyond this sanctuary. The moment shattered. They retreated through the narrow passage, returning to the main canyon where shadows grew long with approaching evening. "I should go," she said reluctantly. "My grandmother needs this water." So I nodded, handing her the water-finding stick. "Remember what I taught you. The earth holds secrets for those willing to listen." As she hurried back toward the village, Nikia realized something had fundamentally changed. No longer did she visit the canyon merely from curiosity or duty. She went because, increasingly, it felt like home. Whitehair's condition improved remarkably after drinking the sacred spring water. Color returned to her weathered cheeks, and her eyes regained their sharp clarity. She studied Nikia with newfound intensity. "This water," she said, fingering the gourd, "it comes from no ordinary source." Nikia busied herself with grinding herbs, avoiding her grandmother's penetrating gaze. "I found a hidden spring in the canyon. Alone." The question hung between them, laden with unspoken knowledge. Before Nikia could respond, shouting erupted outside. The village had gathered around the communal fire pit where the chief stood with the shamans. "The spirits demand sacrifice," announced the eldest shaman, his voice cracking with age. "The drought will end when we cleanse ourselves of impurity." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Nakia pressed forward, unease building in her chest. "What sacrifice?" someone called. "Exile," replied the chief, his gaze sweeping the assembly. "Those who have angered the spirits must be identified and removed, as we did in the time of the great drought." Nakia felt her grandmother's hand grip her arm. "They speak of the time when Tso-ay was cast out," Whitehair whispered. "History bends toward repetition." That night, Nakia slipped away earlier than usual, a desperate plan forming in her mind. If she could find water for the village using what Tso-ay had taught her, perhaps the talk of sacrifice would dissipate. She found him waiting, tension evident in his posture. "You've heard," he said, requiring no explanation. They speak of exile again, of cleansing. She clutched the water-finding stick. I thought if I could show them where water hides, it won't be enough. His voice carried the weight of experience. Fear needs a face. They will find someone to blame. As they blamed you? She stepped closer. Tell me the truth of it, Tso-ay. What really happened 20 years ago? He was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he moved to the back of his dwelling, retrieving something wrapped in ancient hide. This belongs to my father's line, he said, carefully unfolding the package. Inside lay a map drawn on stretched deer hide, its surface marked with symbols and lines. The water paths, he explained, finger tracing a blue line. For generations, my family were waterkeepers. We knew where springs rose and fell, how underground rivers flowed. Your family were waterkeepers? Nakia studied the map with growing understanding. That's why you know how to find water during drought. Knowledge meant power. Others wanted it. His expression darkened. When the drought came, the chief, the father of the current chief, demanded I reveal all water sources. I was young, sworn to protect some locations deemed sacred by my father. You refused. I offered to show common water sources, but kept the sacred ones secret. Then the chief's youngest son fell ill. Pain flashed across his features. I tried to bring water from the sacred spring to heal him, but was caught returning. They claimed I had poisoned him. But you were trying to save him, Nikia whispered. The boy died. They needed someone to blame. He gestured to his massive frame. I was already feared for my size. It was easy to believe I carried a curse. The injustice burned in Nikia's throat. And the water sources? What happened to them? Some were taken. Others were lost when I was exiled. Knowledge breaks easily when its keepers are scattered. He touched the map gently. This shows all the water paths, including sources your village has forgotten. This map could save my people. Hope surged within her. It could. His eyes met hers. But taking it would expose your connection to me. They would turn on you next. There must be a way. Frustration edged her voice. My people suffer while life-giving water flows beneath their feet. So I studied her face. You truly care for those who might cast you out? As you once did. The realization softened her tone. You still care for the tribe that rejected you. Something vulnerable crossed his expression. Without thinking, Nakia reached for his hand, his enormous palm engulfing her smaller one. We will find a way, she promised. Together. The map lay between them, ancient knowledge waiting to be reclaimed. Outside the canyon, a village thirsted. Inside, two people from different worlds forged a bond stronger than either had known before. As dusk deepened, they shared a simple meal of rabbit stew and wild greens. The first time they had eaten together. The intimacy of breaking bread created yet another bridge between them. I should return before I'm missed, Nakia said reluctantly. As she gathered her things, a shadow moved at the canyon entrance. A figure ducked out of sight. Someone was watching. So I said quietly. Fear clutched at Nakia's heart. Their secret was no longer theirs alone. Dawn broke with commotion in the village. Nakia emerged from her dwelling to find a crowd gathered around Keem, the chief's son. His face flushed with righteous anger. He held something aloft. A small wooden bear. Her medicine bear. The carving Tso-ay had given her. Proof! Keem shouted. Proof of betrayal among us. Nakia pushed through the murmuring crowd. That belongs to me, she said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. Yes, Keem's eyes narrowed. A carving made by the cursed one. I followed you, Nakia. I saw you with him. Gasps rippled through the gathering. Women clutched protective amulets. Men reached for weapons. Bring her to my father, Keem commanded, and rough hands seized Nakia's arms. They dragged her to the chief's dwelling where he sat with the council of elders. Her grandmother was notably absent. The wooden bear was placed before them like damning evidence. "Is this true?" the chief asked, his face grave. "You consort with the exile? The cursed one?" "I speak with Tso-ay," Nakia answered, using his name deliberately. "He is a man, not a curse. He has knowledge that could help our people find water." "She is bewitched," whispered an elder. "The giant has clouded her mind." "He did not cause this drought," Nikia insisted. "He was wrongfully blamed 20 years ago, just as you seek someone to blame now." The chief rose, anger flashing in his eyes. "You dare question the wisdom of our traditions? The judgment of our ancestors?" "I question injustice," she replied, feeling strength in the truth. Tso-ay's family were water-keepers. They held knowledge of springs and underground rivers, knowledge our tribe has lost. "Lies," hissed Keem. "Tales spun by a monster to seduce a foolish girl." "He has a map," Nakia continued, ignoring the insult. "An ancient map showing water sources throughout our lands, including some the village has forgotten." This gave the council pause. After 130 days without rain, even superstition yielded to thirst. "What map?" the chief demanded. A hide map passed through his family line. His father was a waterkeeper before the tribal division. An old man at the edge of the council stirred. "Waterkeepers," he murmured. "I remember stories from my youth." The chief silenced him with a gesture. "If such a map exists, the giant must surrender it to us." "He will not," Nikia said. "Not after how he was treated. But he might share the knowledge, if approached with respect." Laughter met her words. "Respect? For the cursed one?" The chief studied her face. "Your loyalty seems to lie with him rather than your own people." "My loyalty is to truth and life," she answered. "The truth is that Tso-ay is not cursed. The life I serve is that of every child dying of thirst in this village." Before the chief could respond, White Hair entered the dwelling, her frail body somehow commanding immediate attention. Around her neck hung something that silenced the entire council. A necklace of bear claws and turquoise, a symbol of authority so ancient few recognized it. "I have stayed silent too long," she announced, her voice stronger than it had been in years. "The time for truth has come." She moved to stand beside Nakia. 20 years ago, a boy was cast out. A boy born to lead, not to be feared. "What do you know of this?" the chief demanded. White Hair touched the necklace. "This belonged to his father, who was brother to your father. The rightful chief before the division." Shocked silence fell over the council. The chief's face drained of color. "Lies," he whispered, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Your father seized power during the last drought," White Hair continued. "He blamed his brother's son for the misfortune, using the boy's unusual size to create fear. The waterkeeper family was scattered or killed. The boy was cast out, carrying the burden of a false curse." "Tso-ay is your cousin," Nakia realized, staring at the chief. "Your blood." "More than cousin," White Hair said. "The true heir to leadership." The revelation hung in the air like summer lightning. The chief's hands trembled as he gripped his staff. "If what you say is true," an elder ventured, "then the drought may be punishment for this injustice." "The drought is the earth cycle," White Hair corrected. "But our suffering is worsened by lost knowledge, knowledge Tso-ay still carries." "Bring him to us," the chief ordered, recovering his composure. "Let him speak these claims himself." "No," Nakia stepped forward. "He will not come to face judgment again. If you wish his help, you must go to him with respect, not accusations." The chief's face darkened. "You dare dictate terms?" "She speaks wisdom," White Hair interjected, "and she holds the trust of one your family wronged deeply." For a long moment, the chief wavered between rage and necessity. Then, As if in answer, a child's cry rose from outside. Another victim of thirst and heat. "Take her to the ceremonial hut," he finally ordered. "Keep her there while we consider these claims." As guards led her away, Nakia caught her grandmother's eye. A silent message passed between them, a plan set in motion that had waited 20 years for its moment. The ceremonial hut stood apart from the village, traditionally used for vision quests and purification rituals. Now it served as Nakia's prison. A single guard sat outside, occasionally peering through the smoke hole to ensure she remained within. Nakia sat cross-legged on the earthen floor, gathering her thoughts. They had left her medicine pouch, perhaps not considering its contents dangerous. From it, she withdrew a small piece of cedar wood, a remnant from one of Tso-ay's carvings that she had kept. With a sharp stone from the floor, she began to work the wood, shaping it with careful strokes. The repetitive motion calmed her mind, allowing her to think beyond the panic of capture. White Hair had recognized the moment they had prepared for. Now Nikia must play her part and wait. Outside, village life continued, but differently. She heard heated discussions, arguments, people taking sides. Her revelation about Tso-ay's true identity had created exactly the division her grandmother had anticipated. As dusk approached, a familiar voice spoke quietly from outside the hut. "Are you well?" White Hair asked, pretending to bring food to the prisoner. "Well enough," Nikia replied. "What news?" "The village divides," her grandmother whispered. "Some believe the truth about Tso-ay, others cling to superstition. The chief sequestered himself with his most loyal supporters. And the water situation? Worse. The well has failed completely. We rely now on the meager stream alone." Nakia nodded, continuing to carve the cedar piece. "He must know I've been captured. He'll be watching." "The raven carries messages," White Hair confirmed, referring to their plan. "When darkness is complete, be ready." After her grandmother departed, Nakia worked faster on her carving. A small fetish in the shape of a raven, symbol of transformation. In Apache tradition, prison fetishes provided spiritual protection during confinement. Night fell. The guard lit a small fire outside, its flickering light casting long shadows through the smoke hole. From beyond the village boundary came the haunting call of a raven, 3 distinct cries. Nakia clutched her carved fetish. The signal. Voices approached, Keem and several warriors speaking with her guard. "The chief demands her presence," Keem said. "Bring her to the council fire." "Now? It's well past midnight," the guard protested. "The council debates through the night. They require her testimony again." The guard entered, binding Nikia's hands before leading her out. Instead of heading toward the central fire pit, however, they moved toward the village boundary. "This isn't the way to the council," the guard said, growing suspicious. "No," Keem agreed, suddenly striking the man with a war club. The guard crumpled without a sound. "It's the way to justice." Panic surged through Nikia as Keem grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" "Saving our tribe," he hissed. "My father is weak, considering the giant's claims. I will not let a usurper take what belongs to our line." The warriors with him, 4 young men loyal to Keem rather than the chief, nodded in grim agreement. "We take her to the canyon," Keem continued. "The cursed one will show himself to save her. Then we kill him, and the curse ends forever." "You would murder your own blood?" Nakia challenged, struggling against his grip. "He is no relation of mine," Keem snarled. "Just a monster who bewitched an old woman and a foolish healer." They dragged her beyond the village boundaries toward the forbidden canyon. Dark clouds obscured the moon and stars, as if the very sky hid its face from what was to come. In the distance, thunder rumbled, unusual in the dry season. The warriors glanced nervously at the sky. "The spirits watch," one murmured. "The spirits approve," Keem corrected harshly. "Tonight we end a 20-year curse." As they neared the canyon entrance, a massive shadow detached itself from the rock wall. The warriors froze, instinctively reaching for weapons. Tso-ay stood before them, his immense figure silhouetted against the darkness. Despite being outnumbered, he showed no fear, only a deep, smoldering anger that seemed to radiate from him like heat from fire. "Release her," he commanded, his voice echoing against the canyon walls. Keem pushed Nakia forward, drawing his knife. "Come claim her, monster. We've waited a long time to finish what our fathers began." Tso-ay's gaze found Nakia's in the darkness. A silent communication passed between them. Trust, resolve, determination. Behind Keem, other shadows moved, older tribal members led by white hair, carrying torches and spears of their own. The elders who believed the truth had come to witness justice restored. The storm clouds shifted, revealing a sliver of moon. By its pale light, something glinted on Tso-ay's chest, the matching piece to white hair's necklace, the symbol of his birthright hidden for 20 years. Thunder cracked overhead, closer now. The air hummed with coming rain and imminent confrontation. After 20 years of exile, the true heir faced his accusers. After a lifetime of believing lies, the tribe stood on the precipice of truth. And in the space between heartbeats, the first raindrop fell. The raindrop struck Keem's cheek like an accusation. He flinched, then recovered, tightening his grip on Nikia. "One drop means nothing," he snarled. "The spirits tease us with false hope." But more drops followed, pattering against the parched earth with increasing urgency. The warriors shifted uneasily, caught between Keem's commands and the unexpected rain, a sign that contradicted everything they'd been told about the curse. "This changes nothing," Keem insisted, raising his knife to Nakia's throat. "The monster comes with us or she dies." "Stop this madness," White Hair called, stepping forward with surprising strength. "The rain comes with him, not despite him." The tribal elders with her murmured agreement, their torches hissing in the strengthening downpour. Behind them, more villagers appeared, drawn by the commotion and the miraculous rain. Tso-ay remained immobile, rain streaming down his massive frame. "I have no quarrel with my tribe," he said, his deep voice carrying despite the storm. "Only with those who twisted truth into lies." Nakia felt Keem's hesitation as doubt crept into the confrontation. Using the moment, she drove her elbow backward into his ribs. His grip loosened enough for her to break free, stumbling forward. Tso-ay caught her, steadying her with gentle hands that belied his strength. The contrast between his careful touch and Keem's rough handling was not lost on the watching crowd. Thunder boomed overhead, and with it came the sound of drumming from the village. The storm drum, played only when rain returned after drought. Someone had begun the ancient ceremony of gratitude. "The curse breaks," an elder announced. "The water returns with its rightful keeper." Keem's face contorted with rage. "Lies! All lies!" He lunged toward Tso-ay and Nikia, knife raised. Without appearing to exert himself, Tso-ay deflected the attack, sending Keem sprawling into the mud. The young man's followers wavered, weapons lowering in confusion. "Return to the village," White Hair commanded them. "Tell the chief his son moves against his authority." 2 warriors immediately obeyed, running back toward the village. The others remained, torn between loyalty to Keem and the increasingly clear signs that they stood on the wrong side of truth. The rain intensified, drenching everyone. After so many months of drought, it felt like blessing washing away deception. Villagers turned their faces upward, mouths open to catch the precious drops, momentarily forgetting the confrontation. Keem struggled to his feet, mud streaking his ceremonial paint. "This proves nothing," he insisted, though uncertainty had crept into his voice. "It proves everything," Nikia countered. "The rain returns with Tso-ay. The spirits speak clearly for those willing to listen." The chief appeared at the canyon entrance, flanked by shamans and warriors. His face, illuminated by lightning, showed a man torn between generations of belief and the evidence before him. "Father," Kim appealed, "I act to protect our lineage. By defying my orders?" The chief replied coldly. "By threatening our healer? The giant must die. The old woman speaks lies about his birth." The chief's gaze shifted to white hair, then to Tso-ay, studying the necklace he wore, identical to the one around the old woman's neck. "Those tokens," he said quietly, "I remember them from childhood. My father took one from his brother's body." White hair nodded solemnly. "The brothers' necklaces, passed through generations of leadership. One buried with your uncle, the other hidden away. Yet he wears one now." The chief gestured to Tso-ay. "I retrieved it from my father's grave before I was exiled," Tso-ay explained. "It was my birthright, the only thing I took with me." A shaman stepped forward, rain plastering his gray hair against his skull. "I was there 20 years ago. I helped prepare your uncle's body." He pointed a trembling finger at Tso-ay. "This one speaks truth. The necklace was indeed buried with the brother." The drumming from the village grew louder, joined by singing as the tribe celebrated the return of rain. The sound seemed to strengthen White Hair, who stepped between Tso-ay and the chief. "Cousin faces cousin," she announced. "The sons of brothers divided by ambition. Will you continue your father's deception, or restore what was broken?" The chief stood silent, rain washing away the symbols of authority painted on his chest. For the first time he looked directly at Tso-ay, not as a curse or threat, but as a man, perhaps even as family. "The drought ends," he finally said, "and with it old lies must end as well." He turned to the gathered villagers. "Return to the village. The council will convene at dawn to hear all truths." "Father," Kim protested. "Enough!" The chief's voice cracked like thunder. "You dishonor yourself and our line. Go now, before I forget you are my son." As the villagers retreated from the canyon entrance, the storm intensified. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the tableau below. The chief and his son, White Hair with the elders, and Tso-ay standing protectively beside Nikia. The moment balanced on a knife's edge between reconciliation and renewed conflict. 20 years of exile and superstition could not be washed away by a single storm, no matter how timely. But it was a beginning. Dawn approached with the storm still raging. The village gathered beneath the council arbor where important decisions had been made for generations. Rain drummed on the woven roof, pooling at the edges and spilling onto already soaked ground. After months of drought, no one complained about the muddy conditions or drenched clothing. The council fire struggled against the damp, protected by an inner circle of stones. Its wavering light cast dramatic shadows across faces streaked with rain and tension. Tso-ay stood at the arbor's edge, neither fully inside the circle nor outside it, a man between worlds. Despite being surrounded by those who had feared him for decades, he maintained a quiet dignity. The ancestral necklace gleamed against his chest, impossible to ignore. Nakia stood nearby, positioning herself deliberately between Tso-ay and the village. Her role as bridge between worlds had never been clearer. "We gather to hear truth," the chief announced, his voice carrying over the storm's rumble. "Truth long buried beneath fear and superstition." "Truth!" Kim stepped forward, still defiant despite his father's earlier rebuke. "What truth comes from a cursed giant and a healer bewitched by him?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some agreeing, others protesting. "The rain speaks its own truth," Nikia replied, gesturing to the downpour. "It returns with him, not against him." "Coincidence," Kim scoffed. "One storm does not erase 20 years of misfortune." "What misfortune?" White Hair challenged, moving to stand beside Nikia. "The drought that drove him out 20 years ago? Or this one that comes as our streams are diverted to water only the chief's fields? Gasps and angry mutters greeted this accusation. The chief's face darkened. You dare! I speak what many know but fear to say. White Hair continued. The eastern stream was dammed and turned 3 moons ago. Only the chief's crops receive its blessing. Is this true? Demanded an elder. The chief's hesitation confirmed the charge more clearly than words could have. Keem stepped forward, attempting to regain control of the situation. My father protects our lineage's legacy, he insisted. The water must be preserved for those who will lead. While children thirst? Nakia countered. While elders weaken from lack of water? The crowd's anger shifted, focusing on the leadership that had hidden water during drought. Sensing the changing tide, Keem pointed accusingly at Tso-ay. He bewitches you all. This giant brings nothing but division and conflict. Tso-ay, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. His deep voice somehow cut through both storm and argument, compelling attention. I have not spoken to my tribe in 20 years, he said. Today I break that silence. He moved forward, entering the circle for the first time. Several people instinctively stepped back, old fears not easily dispelled. I was born to the Waterkeeper family, son of the chief's brother. When I grew too quickly, too large, fear replaced understanding. When drought came, fear became accusation. Lightning flashed, illuminating his face. Solemn, dignified, unthreatening despite his size. I did not curse our people then. I do not curse them now. I come only to restore what was lost, knowledge of water that could save many lives. He withdrew the hide map from his tunic, carefully protected from the rain. This shows water paths beneath our lands. Springs, underground rivers, places to dig wells that will not run dry. The chief stepped forward, reaching for the map. So I held it back. Not for one family's fields, he said firmly. For all our people. You dictate terms? Keem snarled, pushing past his father. A monster teaches us about fairness? He is no monster, Nikia declared. He is what we made him through our fear and ignorance. Keem's hand dropped to his knife. I will not listen to this. I will not watch my father surrender to superstition. He lunged toward Tso-ay, blade flashing in the firelight. Nakia moved to intercept, but Tso-ay gently shifted her aside, facing Keem's attack without flinching. The knife never reached its target. Lightning struck the central pole of the council arbor with a deafening crack. Blinding light and concussive force knocked everyone to the ground. The ceremonial pole, standing for generations, split down the middle, smoldering despite the rain. In Apache tradition, lightning striking a council gathering represented direct intervention from the spirits, a judgment that could not be ignored. Silence fell as people slowly recovered, staring at the shattered pole in awe and fear. Tso-ay stood exactly where he had been, unharmed, the map still clutched in his hands. Keem lay sprawled in the mud, his knife flung far from his grasp. White Hair was the first to speak, her voice carrying the weight of authority and age. The spirits have judged, she announced. They recognize the true heir. No one, not even Keem, dared contradict her interpretation. The chief slowly rose, looking first at the shattered pole, then at Tso-ay. 20 years of certainty crumbled in his expression, replaced by doubt and the dawning of a terrible realization. The water map, he said hoarsely. Show us. The storm intensified as Tso-ay unfolded the water map across a flat stone, weighing its corners with river rocks. Villagers crowded forward, their fear of him temporarily overcome by desperation for water. The chief stood opposite Tso-ay, the split council pole between them, a physical manifestation of the division that had plagued the tribe for generations. Here, Tso-ay indicated a series of blue lines. Underground rivers flow beneath the eastern ridge. Here and here natural wells can be dug. And this, his finger traced a complex pattern, shows where waters gather during drought. The sacred spring, white hair murmured, recognizing the location. One of several, Tso-ay confirmed. My father taught me their locations, swearing me to protect them. The chief studied the map, recognition dawning in his eyes. This matches my father's partial map, the one he claimed was complete. He took half knowledge and claimed full wisdom. Tso-ay said, no accusation in his tone, merely stating fact. As a boy, I tried to tell him there was more. He refused to listen. Lightning flashed again, closer this time. The rain became a torrent, cascading from the arbor's roof in sheets. At the village edge, someone shouted in alarm. The stream overflows. A warrior ran into the council circle, dripping and breathless. Water rushes down from the canyon. The underground rivers, swollen with sudden rain, had surfaced. Tso-ay nodded as if expecting this. It follows the path shown here, he said, indicating the map. The canyon will channel it safely past the village if the eastern gully remains clear. The gully where my father built his dam, the chief said quietly. Nikia saw the moment understanding crystallized in the chief's eyes, the realization that his father's actions, continued through his own, had not only diverted water but blocked its natural flow during storms. The very measures taken to hoard water now threatened the village with flooding. We must break the dam, the chief declared. Quickly, before the waters rise further. As warriors rushed to comply, Keem rose from where he had fallen, mud caking his ceremonial paint. Stop, he commanded. My father is bewitched. The giant tricks us with his map. Few heeded him, the immediate threat of flooding outweighing old suspicions. Enraged by this dismissal, Keem grabbed his father's staff of authority, a symbol of leadership passed down for generations. I claim leadership by right of challenge, he shouted, invoking an ancient tribal law. The old ways have been abandoned. I will restore them. The chief turned to his son, sorrow evident beneath his anger. You challenge based on lies you've been taught to believe. I was wrong, my father was wrong. We cast out an innocent to protect our claim to power. There is no innocence in him, Keem snarled, pointing the staff at Tso-ay. Only deception and curse. Memory surfaced in Tso-ay's eyes. The day of his exile, a 17-year-old boy facing similar accusations, similar hatred. Nakia moved to his side, her hand finding his in silent support. The curse was never mine, Tso-ay said quietly. It was the curse of fear, passed from father to son. Keem charged, wielding the chief's staff like a weapon. Without releasing Nakia's hand, Tso-ay sidestepped the attack. The young man's momentum carried him forward into the mud. The staff struck the shattered council pole and broke with a crack that echoed the earlier lightning strike. Silence fell over the gathering. The broken staff, another powerful symbol shattered in a single night. The chief moved forward, helping his son to his feet. Enough, he said, voice heavy with finality. The spirits have spoken through lightning, rain, and broken wood. We have lived by lies for too long. A child's scream pierced the moment. A young girl caught in the rising waters at the village edge. Without hesitation, Tso-ay released Nakia's hand and ran toward the sound, his powerful strides covering ground faster than anyone could follow. The girl had climbed a cottonwood to escape the flood, but now clung precariously to branches being battered by the current. The water had risen with shocking speed, already reaching halfway up the trunk. Villagers gathered at the flood's edge, helpless to reach her. They watched in astonishment as Tso-ay waded into the churning waters, seemingly unbothered by the current that would have swept away a smaller man. Hold tight, he called to the child. I'm coming. The girl stared down at him, terror giving way to wonder as the giant everyone feared reached up with gentle hands. You're the cursed one, she whispered as he lifted her from the branch. No, little one, he replied, setting her safely on his shoulders. Just a man who's been away too long. He carried her back through the flood waters, delivering her to her mother's waiting arms. The woman hesitated only briefly before whispering, "Thank you." 2 simple words, but they seemed to affect Tso-ay more deeply than all the accusations and fear that had preceded them. He nodded once, emotion visible in his eyes despite the rain streaming down his face. The waters continued to rise, but warriors had reached the eastern dam. With axes and bare hands, they tore at the structure until it gave way with a great surge. The flood found its natural channel again, rushing harmlessly past the village rather than through it. Nakia watched as the tribe's perception shifted visibly. The cursed giant had become their savior, first through his knowledge, then through his actions. Dawn broke over a transformed landscape. The storm had passed, leaving behind cleared skies and a village half submerged in muddy water. Yet despite the destruction, people moved with purpose rather than despair. Water, their most precious resource, had returned in abundance. As the sun rose, the tribal elders gathered in the circle of stones, an ancient meeting place used only for the most significant decisions. Unlike the council arbor with its hierarchical arrangement, the stone circle placed all participants on equal ground. The chief sat not at its head but as one among many. Nikia stood with white hair at the circle's edge. Tso-ay waited outside, respecting the boundaries until formally invited. Throughout the night, he had worked tirelessly alongside villagers to redirect floodwaters and rescue belongings. His strength, once feared, had become invaluable. "Enter the circle," the chief called to him. "You have earned your place." Tso-ay stepped forward, ducking his head in traditional respect. The elders made space, shifting to include him in their deliberations. "For 20 years, the chief began, our tribe has lived with a lie. A young man was cast out, branded with a curse that was never his to bear." He looked directly at Tso-ay. "On behalf of those who wronged you, I offer acknowledgement of this injustice." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the circle. The chief continued, his voice strengthening with each word. "The drought did not come because of you. It did not end because of you. But our suffering was made worse by the loss of your family's knowledge." He gestured to the water map, now carefully preserved despite the flood. "Knowledge that rightfully belonged to all our people." An elder woman spoke up, her voice quavering with age. "I remember the water keepers. They could find springs in the driest seasons. They taught us which plants indicated water beneath the ground." "My father was the last formally recognized keeper," Tso-ay said. "But he passed his knowledge to me before he died." "Then you are the keeper now," the chief acknowledged. "And more than that, you are the son of my father's brother, my cousin, my blood." The admission cost him visibly, years of belief crumbling with each word. Yet something else replaced it, the unburdening that comes with truth. "What of leadership?" asked an elder. If his father was the rightful chief, the question hung in the air, loaded with implication. By tribal tradition, leadership passed through bloodlines. If Tso-ay's father had been wrongfully deposed, then his claim superseded the current chief's. Tso-ay raised his hand. "I make no claim to leadership. 20 years away from our people has made me a stranger to many of our ways. I seek only to share my knowledge and live among my tribe again." Relief flickered across the chief's face, quickly replaced by solemn dignity. "Your restraint honors you," he said, "but the truth must be acknowledged. Your line was the elder branch. The leadership was taken, not given." White hair stepped forward. "Perhaps it is time for new traditions. The brothers' quarrel divided us once. Let us not repeat that pattern." "What do you propose?" the chief asked. "Shared wisdom," she replied. "Let the chief remain, but let the waterkeeper take his rightful place as advisor and teacher. Let us learn from both." The suggestion resonated with the gathered elders. After witnessing the night's events, the lightning strike, the broken staff, the rescue of the child, few could deny that significant change was needed. "There is the matter of my son," the chief said quietly. "His actions last night cannot be ignored. He was raised on the same lies that sustained your father's rule," Tso-ay observed. "Blame lies with those who created the deception, not those who inherited it." The chief studied Tso-ay with newfound respect. "You show more forgiveness than many would in your position. 20 years alone gives a man perspective," Tso-ay replied simply. "Hatred is a poor companion in solitude." Nakia watched the exchange with a full heart. The man everyone had feared as cursed now taught them about forgiveness and wisdom. The elders deliberated further as morning advanced. Decisions about rebuilding, water management, and Tso-ay's reintegration were made with careful consideration. Throughout, he offered insights without demanding authority, demonstrating leadership more profound than any title could convey. As the council concluded, the chief approached Tso-ay privately. The two men, cousins, rivals, now reluctant allies, stood face to face. "You're dwelling in the canyon," the chief began awkwardly. "Will you keep it, or return to the village?" "The canyon has been my home for 20 years, Tso-ay answered. "It will not be easily abandoned, but I would walk freely between both worlds now." The chief nodded, understanding. "And the healer? I've seen how she looks at you, how you look at her." Tso-ay glanced toward Nikia, who stood with her grandmother across the circle. "That path is not yet clear to either of us." "The tribe would not oppose it," the chief offered, a peace branch extended. "After last night, many see you differently." "One night cannot erase 20 years, Tso-ay replied. "But it is a beginning." The stone circle emptied as people dispersed to continue recovery efforts. Only Tso-ay remained, feeling the sun's warmth on his face without shame or hiding for the first time in decades. He had entered the circle as an outcast but would leave it as something else, a man reclaiming his place in the world. The days following the storm brought remarkable changes to the village. Under Tso-ay's guidance, the tribe discovered 3 new water sources, springs revealed by the flood that had remained hidden beneath the surface for generations. The most significant emerged at the village edge, bubbling up through cracked earth where nothing had flowed before. "A new spring," White Hair declared, dipping her weathered hands into the clear water. "Born of storm and truth." Villagers gathered around this unexpected blessing, children splashing in its shallow pool while elders performed gratitude ceremonies. The spring quickly became a symbol of renewal, both of the land and the tribe's connection to it. Tso-ay moved between the village and his canyon dwelling, no longer hiding in shadows. Though some still regarded him warily, their fear diminished with each passing day. Children proved the quickest to accept him, fascinated by his size and his gentle way with animals. They followed him like curious birds, peppering him with questions about the canyon and his carvings. One morning, Nikia found him seated cross-legged in the village center, surrounded by a semicircle of wide-eyed children. In his massive hands, he held a small cedar block, his carving knife moving with delicate precision. "The wood tells me what it wishes to become," he explained to his rapt audience. "I merely help it find its shape." He looked up as Nikia approached, a smile warming his usually solemn features. The children made room for her in their circle without being asked. "Tso-ay is making animals for everyone," a small girl informed her importantly. "Is he?" Nikia smiled, settling beside them. "He has a gift for finding the spirit in the wood. Like you find the spirit in plants," the girl nodded sagely. "Similar," Tso-ay agreed, his eyes meeting Nikia's over the child's head. Something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement of their parallel paths, their shared understanding of the world's hidden aspects. Later, as afternoon shadows lengthened, they walked together to the new spring. The village buzzed with activity around them, rebuilding, replanting, renewing. Keem had been assigned to work alongside the elders, learning tribal history and water management as both punishment and education. The chief had begun the process of sharing authority more broadly, consulting a council rather than ruling alone. "Your carvings are appearing throughout the village," Nakia observed as they reached the spring. "People treasure them. They give me purpose," Tso-ay replied. "For 20 years, I carved for no eyes but my own. And now I carve for connection." He knelt beside the spring, testing its flow with experienced hands. "The water runs strong. It will not fail even if drought returns." "Like your connection to the tribe," Nikia suggested. "Once severed, now flowing again." So I considered this. Some connections never truly break, only go underground for a time. His gaze, when it returned to her face, held meaning beyond his words. Like certain rivers beneath the desert. Heat that had nothing to do with the afternoon sun warmed Nakia's cheeks. Since the night of the storm, neither had spoken directly of the feelings growing between them. Both understood the complexity of their situation. She, the respected healer, he still finding his place after decades of exile. The chief's horse, the very animal that had first brought them together, approached the spring to drink. Its wound had healed completely, leaving barely a scar. So I stroked its neck with affection. "You saved him," Nakia said, "as you saved the child during the flood." "As you saved me," he countered quietly, "by seeing a person when others saw only fear." The simple truth of his words touched her deeply. On impulse, she reached for his hand, an echo of the moment during the confrontation with Keem, but now without crisis driving the gesture. His enormous palm engulfed hers, yet his touch remained gentle, almost reverent. They stood together beside the new spring, their joined hands a bridge between worlds once thought incompatible. From the village edge, White Hair watched them with knowing eyes. Beside her stood the chief, his expression thoughtful. "The curse is broken in more ways than one," the old woman observed. "Is it wise?" The chief wondered aloud. "The healer and the former exile?" White Hair smiled. "Wisdom rarely determines matters of the heart. But in this case, perhaps the heart shows more wisdom than our traditions did." The spring bubbled between smooth stones, finding its path forward just as the tribe found theirs. Not by returning to old ways, but by carving new channels guided by ancient knowledge. Water that had been hidden now flowed freely, nourishing land long parched by absence. Like the spring, Tso-ay had emerged from darkness into light. Like the tribe, Nakia had discovered truth beneath long-accepted stories. Together they stood at the edge of possibility, their futures as clear and promising as the water bubbling from once barren ground weeks before the storm and revelations. During the quiet development of their connection, Nakia and Tso-ay had established a meeting place, a flat, sun-warmed stone overlooking a small grotto where canyon doves nested. They sat there now as afternoon light painted the canyon walls in deepening crimson, their visits no longer secret but still private. "This word," Nakia said, tracing a symbol in the dust coating the stone's surface, "means to heal in the old language. My grandmother taught me the ancient forms that many have forgotten. So I studied the marking with interest. My father used similar symbols on the water map. He traced his own symbol beside hers. This means hidden water in the keeper's language. Our tribes were once one people," Nakia mused. "Before the division, we shared these words. The division separated more than families." So I agreed. Knowledge was split, each side keeping parts from the other. This exchange of language had become a ritual between them, a bridge across years of separation and different experiences. So I knew words passed down through the Waterkeeper lineage that had been lost to the main tribe. Nakia knew healing terms preserved through her grandmother's teachings. "I never felt I belonged among the healers," Nakia admitted, brushing away their symbols to create space for new ones. The others followed traditions exactly as they were taught. I always questioned, always wondered why. And did you find answers? So I asked. Sometimes. Often my questions led to better medicines. She smiled ruefully. But they also led to whispers that I was too independent, too willing to break with tradition. So I nodded in understanding. Even before my size marked me as different, I asked too many questions. My father encouraged my curiosity, but others saw it as disrespect. We were both outsiders, Nakia realized, even before you were exiled. Perhaps that's why. So I began, then stopped himself. Why what? He hesitated, then continued with careful words. Why we recognize something in each other. A similar spirit. The simple observation carried weight beyond its words. Nakia felt warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the afternoon sun. Tell me about your childhood, she invited. Before the exile. I want to know who you were before the curse label was forced upon you. Tso-ay's expression softened with memory. I was a boy who loved the canyon streams. My father would wake me before dawn to check the water levels, to listen to the earth's whispers about where rain had fallen in distant places. You were always meant to be a waterkeeper, Nakia observed. As you were always meant to heal, he replied. Even as a child, I collected injured creatures, birds with broken wings, rabbits caught in traps. I couldn't heal them as you would, but I could create safe places for their recovery. This glimpse into his past touched Nakia deeply. Before her sat not the feared giant of village legends, but a man whose compassion had survived decades of rejection. And you? He asked. What child became the healer who dared enter the cursed canyon? Nakia laughed softly. A stubborn one. I questioned everything. Climbed where girls weren't supposed to climb. Spoke when children should be silent. Her smile faded. My mother died birthing me. Perhaps that made me value life more fiercely, question rules more readily. Your mother would be proud of the woman you've become, so I said with quiet certainty. As your father would recognize the keeper you are, despite everything that was taken from you. A companionable silence fell between them, broken only by the soft cooing of canyon doves. In the distance, a hunting party's calls echoed against the stone walls. Village sounds that once would have sent Tso-ay into hiding, but now merely marked the day's progression. I've never fit easily among others, Tso-ay admitted, his deep voice barely above a whisper. Even before the exile, my size made simple things difficult. Sitting in the teaching circle, entering dwellings, accepting food portions that never quite satisfied. And now, Nakia asked, with your return to the tribe? Now I understand that belonging isn't about fitting, he replied thoughtfully. It's about finding your proper place, even if that place must be made anew. Voices approached from the canyon entrance. Children from the village calling Nakia's name. Their time alone would soon end. They seek the healer, Tso-ay observed, a smile softening his usually solemn features. And we'll find the waterkeeper with her, Nakia replied, making no move to rise. Let them see us together. Let them understand that wisdom is found in unexpected places. As the children rounded the canyon bend, their momentary surprise at finding the healer with the giant quickly transformed into excitement. They scrambled up to the flat stone, eager to show Nakia a snake skin they had found, equally eager to ask Tso-ay about its meaning in the old stories. The language stone had become more than a meeting place. It had become a teaching ground where past and future, division and unity, found their balance in the simple act of sharing words across generations. During those middle days of their growing connection, before the village discovered their meetings, Nakia arrived at the canyon to find Tso-ay preparing for a hunt. He knelt beside the stream, crafting a simple snare from plant fibers. Would you join me? He asked, glancing up as her shadow fell across his work. There are hunting techniques my family used that differ from the village methods. Nakia hesitated only briefly. In the tribe, Hunting was traditionally men's work, while women gathered plants and prepared food. But tradition had already been broken between them in so many ways. One more boundary seemed insignificant. "Show me," she agreed. They moved deeper into the canyon, Tso-ay demonstrating how to place the snares along almost invisible rabbit trails. His enormous hands, which should have been too large for such delicate work, moved with surprising grace. "You must think." The elders called him Tso-ay, the cursed giant whose shadow brought misfortune to the people. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, he lived alone in the crimson canyons where no one dared to tread. His own tribe had cast him out, believing his presence angered the spirits. Children were hushed at the mention of his name, and women took the long path around his territory, clutching protective amulets. For 20 summers, he carved beautiful figures from cedar wood that no one would ever see. His isolation was complete until the day Nakia, a healer with eyes that held no fear, crossed the boundary others wouldn't. She came for a wounded horse but found something unexpected, a gentle soul behind the fearsome legend. Could the curse that had defined him for so long be nothing more than a cruel misunderstanding? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn painted the adobe dwellings in shades of amber as Nikia gathered herbs from her garden. Her fingers worked methodically, selecting sage, juniper, and yarrow with practiced precision. Each plant whispered its secrets to her. Knowledge passed from her grandmother and the grandmothers before her. She tucked them into her medicine pouch, a worn leather sack adorned with beadwork depicting healing symbols. "The fever has broken," she told the worried mother waiting at her door. "Keep making the tea as I showed you, and your son will be playing with the others by tomorrow's sunset." The woman's shoulders relaxed, gratitude shining in her tired eyes. This was Nakia's gift and her burden. At 25 summers, she carried the responsibility of healing for her entire village. Not the oldest medicine woman, nor the most experienced, but the one with the touch that animals trusted and children didn't fear. "Nakia!" A young boy ran toward her, dust rising from his bare feet. "The chief wants you. His favorite horse is injured." She followed him to the edge of the village where a magnificent stallion lay breathing heavily, a deep gash across its flank. The chief stood nearby, his weathered face creased with concern. "It wandered back from the western canyon," he explained. "Something attacked it near the forbidden territory." The forbidden territory. Nakia kept her expression neutral, though her heart quickened. Everyone knew what lived in those crimson canyons. "I will need to gather more medicine," she said, "and I may need to stay with the horse overnight." The chief nodded gravely. "Do what you must, but be cautious. The drought makes the spirits restless, and the cursed one grows bolder." That evening, as she prepared her healing supplies, her grandmother entered her dwelling. White hair, they called her, the oldest living memory of their people. "You go to the canyon tomorrow," she stated, her voice carrying the weight of certainty. Nakia didn't question how she knew. "The horse needs herbs that grow there." "And you are not afraid of the stories?" White hair settled beside the fire, her eyes reflecting the flames. "Stories are often just that, stories." Nakia arranged poultices in her medicine pouch. "Not all." The old woman's fingers traced the beadwork on Nakia's pouch. "I made this for you because I saw that you would need its protection one day." "From the cursed giant?" Nakia couldn't help the skepticism in her voice. "From fear itself." White hair took a pinch of sacred herbs and cast them into the fire. "The drought has lasted 3 seasons now. The people seek someone to blame. And they blame him, the one they cast out." Nakia had always wondered about the giant who lived alone in the canyons. As a child, she'd heard whispers of his immense strength, his unnatural height, the calamities that followed in his wake. When fear rules the heart, truth hides its face. White hair stood with effort. "Take this with you tomorrow. She pressed a small stone amulet into Nikia's palm. "It belonged to your mother." "My mother." Nikia rarely heard mention of the woman who died bringing her into the world. She too had eyes that saw beyond appearances. The old woman shuffled toward the door. "Remember, Nikia, cursed or blessed depends on who tells the story." After her grandmother left, Nakia added the amulet to her medicine pouch. Tomorrow she would enter the territory everyone avoided. She told herself it was for the wounded horse, for her duty as a healer. But deep within, curiosity stirred. About the giant, about the curse, about why her heart felt no fear when others trembled at the mere mention of his name. As she drifted to sleep, the drought-parched wind whispered through the village. No rain had fallen in 90 days. The crops withered in the fields, and the streams ran thin. People were frightened, and frightened people needed something or someone to blame. Tomorrow she would cross the boundary that no one crossed. Tomorrow she might discover if the curse was real. The canyon walls glowed crimson in the morning light as Tso-ay emerged from his dwelling. A shallow cave expanded over years into a home of sorts. His massive frame ducked beneath the entrance, shoulders nearly spanning its width. At almost 7 feet tall, he had always been too large for the world around him. He moved with the quiet grace of a man accustomed to solitude, gathering water from the hidden spring that had sustained him through 20 years of exile. The drought had lowered its level, but unlike the village streams, it never ran dry. The spirits still spoke to him, even if his people believed otherwise. Beside his fire pit sat his latest creation. A cedar wolf, its form emerging from the wood as if it had always been there waiting. His large hands, surprisingly nimble, picked up the carving knife. Each stroke was deliberate, revealing the spirit within the wood rather than imposing his will upon it. This was his morning ritual, this communion with cedar and blade. He had dozens of carvings. Eagles soaring, horses running, bears standing guard. An audience of silent companions that watched over his loneliness. Sometimes he spoke to them, his deep voice rough from disuse. They were his only listeners now. A sound caught his attention, the labored breathing of an animal in distress. He set down his carving and moved toward the canyon entrance, senses alert. There, collapsed in the shadow of a juniper, lay a horse, a magnificent stallion with the markings of the village chief's prized mount. Tso-ay approached cautiously. The horse's eyes rolled with fear, nostrils flaring at his scent. A deep gash ran across its flank, still seeping blood. "Mountain lion, most likely." "Easy," he murmured, his voice a low rumble that somehow calmed the frightened animal. "I will not harm you." He retreated to his dwelling and returned with a poultice of herbs he had gathered and dried. The horse watched him. The elders called him Tso-ay, the cursed giant whose shadow brought misfortune to the people. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, he lived alone in the crimson canyons where no one dared to tread. His own tribe had cast him out, believing his presence angered the spirits. Children were hushed at the mention of his name, and women took the long path around his territory, clutching protective amulets. For 20 summers, he carved beautiful figures from cedar wood that no one would ever see. His isolation was complete until the day Nikia, a healer with eyes that held no fear, crossed the boundary others wouldn't. She came for a wounded horse but found something unexpected, a gentle soul behind the fearsome legend. Could the curse that had defined him for so long be nothing more than a cruel misunderstanding? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn painted the adobe dwellings in shades of amber as Nakia gathered herbs from her garden. Her fingers worked methodically, selecting sage, juniper, and yarrow with practiced precision. Each plant whispered its secrets to her, knowledge passed from her grandmother and the grandmothers before her. She tucked them into her medicine pouch, a worn leather sack adorned with beadwork depicting healing symbols. "The fever has broken," she told the worried mother waiting at her door. Keep making the tea as I showed you, and your son will be playing with the others by tomorrow's sunset. The woman's shoulders relaxed, gratitude shining in her tired eyes. This was Nakia's gift and her burden. At 25 summers, she carried the responsibility of healing for her entire village. Not the oldest medicine woman, nor the most experienced, but the one with the touch that animals trusted and children didn't fear. Nakia! A young boy ran toward her, dust rising from his bare feet. The chief wants you. His favorite horse is injured. She followed him to the edge of the village where a magnificent stallion lay breathing heavily, a deep gash across its flank. The chief stood nearby, his weathered face creased with concern. It wandered back from the western canyon, he explained. Something attacked it near the forbidden territory. The forbidden territory. Nikia kept her expression neutral, though her heart quickened. Everyone knew what lived in those crimson canyons. I will need to gather more medicine, she said, and I may need to stay with the horse overnight. The chief nodded gravely. Do what you must, but be cautious. The drought makes the spirits restless, and the cursed one grows bolder. That evening, as she prepared her healing supplies, her grandmother entered her dwelling. White hair, they called her, the oldest living memory of their people. You go to the canyon tomorrow, she stated, her voice carrying the weight of certainty. Nakia didn't question how she knew. The horse needs herbs that grow there. And you are not afraid of the stories? White hair settled beside the fire, her eyes reflecting the flames. Stories are often just that, stories. Nakia arranged poultices in her medicine pouch. Not all. The old woman's fingers traced the beadwork on Nakia's pouch. I made this for you because I saw that you would need its protection one day. From the cursed giant? Nakia couldn't help the skepticism in her voice. From fear itself. White hair took a pinch of sacred herbs and cast them into the fire. The drought has lasted 3 seasons now. The people seek someone to blame. And they blame him, the one they cast out. Nakia had always wondered about the giant who lived alone in the canyons. As a child, she'd heard whispers of his immense strength, his unnatural height, the calamities that followed in his wake. When fear rules the heart, truth hides its face. White hair stood with effort. Take this with you tomorrow. She pressed a small stone amulet into Nakia's palm. It belonged to your mother. My mother. Nakia rarely heard mention of the woman who died bringing her into the world. She too had eyes that saw beyond appearances. The old woman shuffled toward the door. Remember, Nikia, cursed or blessed depends on who tells the story. After her grandmother left, Nakia added the amulet to her medicine pouch. Tomorrow she would enter the territory everyone avoided. She told herself it was for the wounded horse, for her duty as a healer. But deep within, curiosity stirred. About the giant, about the curse, about why her heart felt no fear when others trembled at the mere mention of his name. As she drifted to sleep, the drought-parched wind whispered through the village. No rain had fallen in 90 days. The crops withered in the fields, and the streams ran thin. People were frightened, and frightened people needed something or someone to blame. Tomorrow she would cross the boundary that no one crossed. Tomorrow she might discover if the curse was real. The canyon walls glowed crimson in the morning light as Tso-ay emerged from his dwelling. A shallow cave expanded over years into a home of sorts. His massive frame ducked beneath the entrance, shoulders nearly spanning its width. At almost 7 feet tall, he had always been too large for the world around him. He moved with the quiet grace of a man accustomed to solitude, gathering water from the hidden spring that had sustained him through 20 years of exile. The drought had lowered its level, but unlike the village streams, it never ran dry. The spirits still spoke to him, even if his people believed otherwise. Beside his fire pit sat his latest creation. A cedar wolf, its form emerging from the wood as if it had always been there waiting. His large hands, surprisingly nimble, picked up the carving knife. Each stroke was deliberate, revealing the spirit within the wood rather than imposing his will upon it. This was his morning ritual, this communion with cedar and blade. He had dozens of carvings: eagles soaring, horses running, bears standing guard. An audience of silent companions that watched over his loneliness. Sometimes he spoke to them, his deep voice rough from disuse. They were his only listeners now. A sound caught his attention, the labored breathing of an animal in distress. He set down his carving and moved toward the canyon entrance, senses alert. There, collapsed in the shadow of a juniper, lay a horse, a magnificent stallion with the markings of the village chief's prized mount. Tso-ay approached cautiously. The horse's eyes rolled with fear, nostrils flaring at his scent. A deep gash ran across its flank, still seeping blood. Mountain lion, most likely. "Easy," he murmured, his voice a low rumble that somehow calmed the frightened animal. "I will not harm you." He retreated to his dwelling and returned with a poultice of herbs he had gathered and dried. The horse watched him,